So Diddy, after the Cassie lawsuit, gets hit with a bunch of lawsuits, and then ultimately the raids, and then...
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
He slipped away under the cover of darkness, gliding through customs with only a single carry-on and the kind of secrets that could topple kingdoms. Gene Deal didn't just catch a flight, he evaporated from the grid like a man who understood. His time had run out. Sources close to the former bodyguard say the alarms had been blaring for days. First came a quiet warning from an ex-Bad Boy Records associate, urging him to disappear for good. Then, just nights later, a harder message, a sharp knock at his door. No face to greet him, only a lone bullet casing resting on the welcome. This wasn't paranoia. This was survival. Gene was convinced the danger wasn't looming on some distant horizon, it was pressing in, measured in hours, not months. After all, they had history. They once worked together a lifetime ago, and in that world, loyalty has an expiration date.
They once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other, and yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially when Diddy has been down.
He wasn't dodging a courtroom or ducking a TMZ headline. He was running from the very machine he once swore to protect. For years, Gene Deal wasn't just muscle. He was a human shield for Sean Diddy Combs. But now, with Diddy sitting in federal custody, facing an indictment list that reads like a Hollywood crime, epic turned painfully real, Gene has become something far more dangerous. The last man alive who might still know where the bodies are buried and which ones aren't just figures of speech. Europe, according to those close to him, wasn't about art museums or fine dining. It was about distance. Distance from the watchful eyes, the quiet coercion, the whispered asterisk, "we'll take care of you" offers that always come with strings made of steel. No farewell tour, no teary press conference, just silence. And then Gene was gone, vanished from the US like a ghost, locking the door behind him. But before disappearing, he left breadcrumbs. And they weren't warm, they were ice cold. In a sit-down with the Art of Dialogue, Gene claimed he'd seen what he called a ledger of names, unverified, unconfirmed, but bone-deep chilling in its implications. 3 separate sources, familiar with that conversation, say Gene believed it was a hit list of sorts, a record of people who had either crossed Diddy or become liabilities. Some of those names, disturbingly, matched real people who had since gone missing, dropped off the face of the earth, or in more than one case turned up dead under circumstances that still don't add up. Former producers, security guards, even junior assistants who'd been present at those infamous freak-off nights. Gene never put the list in public view, but insiders swear he took it with him when he fled. And if they're right, then somewhere in Europe, folded in a carry-on, tucked away in some safe place, might be a single sheet of paper that explains why so many voices around Diddy went silent.
Are you surprised by the evidence that's already coming out in the criminal trial?
No, I'm not surprised. I experienced some of those things. Witness violence.
We're not saying Diddy personally pulled every string that led to those dark outcomes, but the pattern is impossible to ignore. Even former FBI profiler Dr. E. Langston has said that in criminal power structures, it's rarely about barking direct orders. It's about creating an ecosystem where control is constant and everyone understands the consequences without them ever being spoken aloud. And Diddy's empire, it thrived on exactly that. Fear and silence weren't just tools, they were currency. Multiple figures from Bad Boy's inner circle have quietly admitted they were handed hush money, pressed to sign airtight NDAs, or offered career upgrades after things went south behind closed doors. Now, with Diddy's trial looming and one key witness already reported missing, Gene Deal's sudden vanishing act doesn't just raise eyebrows, it's an air raid siren. Was he tipped off that his name was circulating in the wrong conversations? Or worse, did he know someone else's name was? Because buried beneath the chaos of Diddy's legal implosion lies another betrayal that slid under the mainstream radar, but not past Gene. He's the one who claims to have exposed what might be the coldest move in hip-hop history, the alleged sale of the notorious B.I.G.'s publishing rights. According to Gene, this wasn't about preserving Biggie's legacy. It wasn't about honoring his memory or securing the future of his family. It was about cash, a potential payout north of $150 million. And not a dime of it, Gene says, was destined for Big's mother, his children, or even Faith Evans. It ain't for Miss Wallace, Gene stated flatly. It ain't for Big's kids.
Looks at Wendy and says, you know, you had a great career. Your career is over. It is never coming back. You're done. Why would a...
Think about that for a second. While Ms. Wallace was reportedly in hospice care, 2 of Diddy's longtime confidants, Wayne Barrow and Mark Pitts, were, according to Gene, quietly finalizing the paperwork. And Gene insists it was all done with Puff's blessing. If that's true, we're not just talking about greed. We're talking about cold, surgical-level calculation. Because what faster way to raise a mountain of quick cash than to liquidate one of the most prized catalogs in hip-hop history, right as legal bills are stacking and plea negotiations are tightening like a noose. And it doesn't stop there. Gene went further, claiming that Ms. Wallace never truly trusted Diddy, that she actively avoided him at public events. She knew, Gene said. Whether that's raw emotion or something grounded in fact, the weight of the statement is explosive because his implication was clear. She suspected Diddy might have had knowledge of, or worse, some level of involvement in her son's death. If that's true, then the publishing sale isn't just a betrayal, it's something darker. It's not just a cash grab, it's blood money.
Same thing for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the interesting thing about the Epstein and the theory about Epstein is we know he filmed people, for sure, on that island. He has a lot of movies, a lot of films of people that are very, very powerful political figures, and entertainers, business people. So, do you really believe that Jeffrey Epstein himself? And of course not. Of course not.
And here's where the whole story takes another hard turn. That rumored kill list. Some insiders believe Biggie was never meant to set foot in LA that night. Others claim what happened in 1997 wasn't just a tragic byproduct of the East Coast-West Coast feud, was a calculated move on a much bigger chessboard, one that had less to do with rap beef and more to do with clearing a lane for Diddy's unchecked rise. The whispers have never really gone silent. Not from Suge Knight, not from former LAPD investigator Greg Kading, and certainly not from Keefe D, who managed to name-drop Diddy 47 times in a single police interview about Tupac Shakur's murder. Now layer that with the recent allegations that Diddy may have tried to buy silence or bankroll his looming defense by cashing out Biggie's publishing and suddenly it stops feeling like scattered rumor and starts looking like a playbook. Not coincidence, not chaos, a plan.
I'm gonna tell you why 50 is literally is a diabolical genius. And he's
Gene, for all the years he spent protecting the empire, is now a ghost in the very world he once navigated like royalty. Christian Combs Didy's own son mocked the entire legal process, strutting shirtless outside the courthouse and celebrating a minor legal win as if his father wasn't still staring down federal charges that could put him away for life. Gene called it clown behavior, but the real circus isn't on the courthouse steps. It's inside, where one crucial witness has already disappeared, where prosecutors are scrambling to lock in testimony, and where insiders are quietly asking, how many more might suddenly go missing? Because in this game, silence isn't just golden, it's the highest form of currency. And right now, Gene Deal might be the wealthiest man alive in what he's not saying. And it's not just Gene's vanishing act that's setting off alarm bells. The quiet around anyone willing to go on record is growing louder. Take victim 3, a key witness in Diddy's high-stakes federal trial. Her testimony was expected to blow the case wide open. Years of alleged exploitation, coercion, and personal details that would make headlines in seconds. She told prosecutors she was ready. She wanted her real name used. Then nothing. She didn't just back out, she evaporated. No contact, no trace. Even her lawyer is missing from the picture, reportedly dealing with personal matters. Convenient, almost too convenient. Like every other time we've seen this play out, when the powerful feel the walls closing in, and the marionette strings start moving behind the curtain. So the question becomes, is this just bad luck and bad timing, or another chapter in Diddy's long-running playbook of intimidation and witness tampering?
Is one of the most outrageous things I have heard in a long, long time, in a case that has been filled.
Because this isn't the first time the whispers have sounded like strategy. Long before the trial officially kicked off, court filings hinted at a shadow network operating right from inside the detention center, allegedly with Diddy using other inmates' access codes to make phone calls. Authorities believe he tried to slip messages to potential witnesses through three-way calls, even sliding in unauthorized names under the guise of legal counsel. That's not rapper behavior, that's mob boss maneuvering. And now, with a whistleblower hiding out in Europe and a key witness gone without a trace, the walls around this case don't just feel padded, they echo with the weight of secrets someone is desperate to bury. Which brings us back to Christian Combs. Shirtless, smirking, dropping push-ups outside a federal courthouse, like his father had just beaten the feds instead of staring down a possible life sentence. Gene Deal didn't mince words, he called him King Clown. But here's the thing, this wasn't just a dumb flex for social media. This was theater. Cameras rolling, muscles pumped, smiles all around. Not the body language of a family in crisis, more like the choreographed victory lap of a dynasty that still believes it's untouchable. And what message does that send? To the victims still preparing to testify. To the future accusers weighing whether to come forward, it says loud and clear that even in the shadow of federal charges that could end everything, the Combs name still dances, still mocks, still dares anyone to try and bring it down.
Pardoning Diddy will create another Epstein for him. It would be a nightmare. And last and certainly not least, the GOP is already struggling with female voters, and they're not all lefties. There are young conservative women who aren't in love with Trump or MAGA. There are. And this will not help. It's very clear. We all saw the videotape of him beating the hell out of him.
It wasn't just disrespect, it was choreography, a calculated act designed to remind the entire music industry that, even after the raids, the lawsuits, the indictments, and the airtight NDAs, the Combs empire can still command a stage. Prosecutors even cautioned the court that Christian's stunt could sway sentencing. But that was never the point. This wasn't about legal outcomes. It was about image, about power, about legacy. A public flex that all but shouted, "We're still here, we're still watching," and if you take Gene Deal at his word. Christian's performance might have been more than vanity. It might have been part of something far darker, because in this family, legacy isn't measured in platinum plaques or Grammy trophies. It's measured in control, passed down like an heirloom, generation to generation, not in gold or accolades, but in silence, secrets, and loyalty, enforced through fear. Whispers from former bad boy insiders suggest Christian's courthouse spectacle wasn't just a personal outburst. It was strategic, a distraction designed to dominate headlines, project strength, and shield weakness at a critical moment. No press statement, no apology, no retraction. Just a smile for the cameras, as if it were a VIP gala instead of a federal criminal proceeding where real lives and futures hang in the balance. And in that silence, the message was deafening.
And then what's the stuff that's happening with Wendy Williams? You think this is all connection to? Of course.
But now, the game is changing behind closed doors. According to sources, federal agents are quietly widening the scope, no longer just chasing allegations of trafficking or exploitation, but mapping the full web of vanishings, cold feet, and sudden silences. Every missing witness, every ex-insider who's gone dark is now a data point. And